Sarah always smelled like vanilla. Now she smelled like smoke and whiskey. She said it was the new bar she'd been hitting after work with the girls. Laughed it off like I was being dramatic, but her supposed partner in crime, Madison, had been visiting her parents in Texas for 2 months straight. My gut kept tripping alarms. Little things piled up. Sarah silencing her phone with a nervous flick when I walked into the room. Playlists full of outlaw country, even though she'd sworn she hated anything twangy. A tiny burn mark on her cardigan that she blamed on a scented candle. Still, I kept trying to talk myself down. We'd met freshman year at Ohio State and weathered dorm room ramen, first rent, my dad's cancer, and her bar exam anxiety. Surely a few odd smells and sketchy alibis couldn't erase all that. But every time she leaned in for a hug and that smoky note cut through the faint ghost of vanilla, the distance between us felt like the Grand Canyon at midnight. Deep, silent, impossible to cross. One sleepless Tuesday at 2 a.m., I found myself scrolling a subreddit called r// Cheating Stories, and the post felt scarily on script. Sudden new perfume, spur of the moment, girls' nights, password-protected devices. Panic morphed into morbid curiosity, then into resolve. By Thursday, I'd ordered a tiny Bluetooth tracker, the kind marketed to worried parents and forgetful pet owners. I wasn't proud, but the alternative was slowly drowning in my own paranoia. The afternoon it arrived, I waited until Sarah was in the shower, her phone blaring Linda Ronstadt behind the steam, and slipped the device into the narrow gap beneath the spare tire cover in her Civic. My hands shook so hard the plastic casing almost clicked shut twice. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, that the pings would lead to the movie theater she claimed to love, or the Pilates studio in Westerville. Yet somewhere under the layers of rationalization, I already knew where those coordinates were headed. Friday's map dots marched south across town, past the mall and the river, to a cul-de-sac I didn't recognize. The icon stopped outside a modern ranch house with a mailbox that still gleamed like the day it came out of the box. I parked a block away and walked, heart hammering loud enough I worried it might echo off the manicured lawns. Through the living room windows I saw flickers, bright orange gold, irregular. A fireplace in April. I crept closer, using the shadow of a maple tree as flimsy cover, and that's when I spotted him. Mason Carter. He'd been Sarah's colleague during her first year at the boutique firm downtown, the guy who gifted her a Burt's Bees set at the Secret Santa, and once told me he was too married to billable hours for a real relationship. Apparently he'd found time. Sarah's cardigan, cream-colored, familiar, was draped over the back of a leather sofa. Her silhouette was unmistakable even through sheer curtains. Petite, hair in that messy knot she always twisted when she wanted no distractions. Mason leaned in, and the way her hand settled on his chest wasn't tentative or guilty. It was practiced. My ribs felt like a vice. The glow from the hearth painted them both in a moving oil painting of amber and shadow, a scene that would have been cozy if it hadn't been puncturing my reality. I didn't burst in or pound the door. I just stood there gathering every whispered doubt and turning it into a single, deafening truth. When I finally drove home, my cheeks were dry, no tears left, only a blank resignation clinging to me like static. I deleted the app, tossed the tracker into a rest stop trash can, and rehearsed everything I might say. By the time I reached our apartment, words had become useless puzzle pieces that refused to interlock. The front door opened at 1:37 a.m. Sarah stepped inside quietly, as though softness could erase the echo of what she'd done. She smelled of smoke, whiskey, and a trace of unfamiliar cologne. For a second, I almost blurted out accusations, screenshots, GPS logs, but she spoke first. Calm, almost gentle. "I'm leaving, Ben. This isn't impulsive. It's final. You're a good man, but I don't see myself in us anymore." Her voice didn't wobble. She'd practiced, maybe rehearsed the line in Mason's hallway while slipping on her shoes. I stared, waiting for an apology, for remorse, for anger. Anything to crack the porcelain mask. Instead, she moved through the apartment with quiet efficiency, collecting her laptop, a change of clothes, the silver necklace her mom had given her. When she reached the doorway again, our eyes locked, and I realized the betrayal wasn't confined to that living room rug or the flicker of firelight. She had checked out months ago, leaving me guarding the shell of our relationship while she explored exits in real time. The physical infidelity was only the last breadcrumb. The real abandonment had already happened in conversations she never started, in smiles that stopped reaching her eyes, in date nights canceled for work emergencies. She said goodbye without hugging me, slid the key onto the console table, and walked down the hallway until the elevator dinged shut behind her. The silence that followed was different from loneliness. It was the sonic boom after a bridge collapse, an awareness that the path back no longer existed. I sat on the couch, fingers still curled around an invisible steering wheel, and understood that tonight wasn't the first time I'd lost her. It was simply the moment I finally caught up. I didn't sleep. The clock on the stove ticked past 3, then 4, each minute carving a deeper groove in my skull. Her coffee mug, white ceramic, tiny red heart above the handle, still sat in the sink with a half-moon stain of lipstick. I washed it, not out of sentiment, but because staring at it felt like holding a live wire. At dawn, I walked to the corner 7-Eleven, the air thick with early spring drizzle. The cashier, Rico, asked if Sarah wanted her usual vanilla cappuccino. I mumbled something about a schedule change and grabbed 2 black coffees instead, because sugary foam suddenly felt like a lie in a cup. Back home, I texted Tyler, my best friend from high school who'd moved to Columbus last year. "You up?" He answered on the 3rd ring, voice gravelly. 30 minutes later, he showed up in sweats, no questions asked, just a 6-pack of ginger ale and a bag of frozen waffles. We ate in silence, broken only by fork clinks. When words finally came, they were jagged. I told him everything, the tracker, the fireplace glow, her goodbye. Tyler's face tightened. "Man, you want me to drive over there?" I shook my head. Violence felt pointless. I'd already lost what mattered. Around noon, an email pinged, a calendar invite to meet Sarah at our storage unit Monday to sort shared property. The professional tone cut deeper than any insult. I clicked accept and felt ridiculous for obeying such sterile etiquette. Rage bubbled, so I grabbed the gym bag I'd never used, stuffed in her abandoned novels and the denim jacket she'd borrowed from her sister, and drove across town to the law firm's parking garage. I didn't plan anything. I just needed geography between me and the ghosts of our living room. Fate, or bad timing, parked Mason's Tesla 2 slots away. He stepped out, blazer slung over his forearm, hair still damp from a shower that probably followed last night's betrayal. Our eyes met. Something sharp flashed across his expression, guilt, maybe caution. "Ben," he started, voice low like we were in church. "This isn't how I want it." I cut him off. "Save it. I'm not here for a fistfight or forgiveness." My hands trembled anyway. "Just answer one thing. When did it start?" He exhaled. "January. After that charity gala. She said you were drifting apart." His shoulders sagged as if the confession weighed 50 pounds. "I swear I never meant." "You don't get to swear anything," I snapped. But as the echo faded, all I felt was exhaustion. Mason wasn't the architect of my heart's foreclosure. He was the final contractor. I turned, tossed the bag into my back seat, and drove off before my anger found a target it didn't deserve. I pulled into Alum Creek Park and sat facing the water, the Civic's engine ticking as it cooled. A family launched a miniature sailboat. A dog chased geese. Normal life continued, oblivious. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through old photos. Sarah in a floppy sun hat, powdered sugar grin at the state fair, dancing barefoot on our dingy first apartment carpet. My thumb hovered over delete, but I couldn't press it yet. Grief needed artifacts. That night I found a folded note slid under the front door. "Ben, there's nothing I can write that won't sound like justification. The truth is, I changed and didn't tell you because I was afraid of the fallout. That cowardice grew into something uglier. I'm sorry for the hurt, but I'm not sorry for choosing honesty now." The signature was just her initial, S, as if her full name had too much history to fit on paper. I poured the last of her vanilla extract down the drain, the sweet smell flooding the kitchen, then fading. On impulse, I drove downtown to the riverfront. Tourists snapped skyline selfies. A busker strummed, "Take it easy." I pulled the promise ring I'd given Sarah sophomore year from my keychain. She'd stopped wearing it once we got serious, said it felt childish. The metal was warm from my palm. I flicked it toward the Scioto, watched it arc under the lights and vanish with a quiet plink that seemed too small for the moment. Walking back, I noticed my reflection in a storefront. Unshaven, eyes rimmed red but standing upright. The thought landed softly. Survival isn't heroic, it's habitual. Step, breathe, repeat until tomorrow looks less like rubble. I texted Tyler, beer and playoff game Sunday. He sent a thumbs up and a gif of a phoenix rising. Cheesy, but it cracked a smile. The night air smelled of rain and city grit, no trace of vanilla or smoke, and for the first time in months, the emptiness felt roomy, like a blank page instead of a grave. Monday, rose gray and heavy like an unsentenced verdict. I drove to the U-Haul lot outside Worthington with the radio off, windshield wipers ticking a lazy metronome. The storage unit row smelled of wet plywood and diesel. Sarah was already there, wearing the olive raincoat I bought her last Christmas, hood up, hands jammed into pockets like she was guarding state secrets. She nodded instead of hello and punched the code. The metal door rattled upward, revealing 6 years of shared life in cardboard. A salsa-stained crock-pot, the IKEA coffee table we called Frankentable after 3 moves, framed photos we never got around to hanging. We worked without speaking, 2 lab techs, cataloging evidence. Halfway through, I lifted a shoebox that rattled oddly. Inside lay ticket stubs, Polaroids, and a dried magnolia bloom from our first New Orleans trip. Things we'd promised to scrapbook someday. Tucked beneath was a brochure for apartments in Atlanta dated last November, long before the whiskey nights. I realized she'd been mapping her escape even as we decor shopped on Etsy. My chest tightened, but the anger felt muted, like a siren behind glass. She finally broke the silence, voice husky from loft dust. Take whatever means something to you. I'll cover the rest of the unit fees. Practical, sterile, as if heartbreak were a billing code. I set the shoebox on her pile. These are yours, I said. Memories weigh less on the one who keeps them. For a moment her shoulders slumped, and I saw the girl who used to steal my hoodies and fall asleep mid-Netflix episode. But the hood straightened, and the distance snapped back into place. We split the contents like accountants. She claimed the Dutch oven, I kept the record player. Neutral items went to Goodwill. When the unit echoed empty, she pulled the door down and held out an envelope. Final logistics, utilities, lease transfer, all signed. I took it, numb fingers brushing hers. No spark, just a faint static crackle. She turned toward her Civic. The same car that once hid my tracker now looked like a getaway vehicle. Rain glazed the asphalt, turning brake lights into blurred rubies. I didn't watch her drive off. Instead, I walked to the dumpster, pitched the envelope unopened, and let the rain soak what paperwork couldn't fix. A notification buzzed. Tyler had front row MLS tickets for Thursday. You in? I typed absolutely before doubt could intervene, then opened Spotify and queued up a playlist called First Days Again. The opening chords of a Springsteen track filled the cab, raw and unapologetic. As I pulled onto the freeway, the city skyline rose through mist, scaffolding silhouetted against new construction cranes. Every exit sign felt less like a reminder of places we'd been and more like an invitation to roads untraveled. Survival, step, breathe, repeat. But for the first time, the pattern felt like a tempo I could dance to, instead of march behind.